Partnered by Times Influence. The 18th Telecom Leadership Forum decoded the road ahead for Indian telecom. Themed around digital disruption and consolidation, the forum saw luminaries from the telecom industry deliberating on an array of trends and issues reshaping the Indian telecom sector, suggesting ways and means to transition to the next orbit of growth and opportunity. We bring you the highlights from this mega event.
The growth of smartphones in 2018 was about 16%. And if you look at the overall penetration, we're still only penetrating about 1/3 of the country. So that is what gives us the hope and optimism as well, that as we progress, the consumer 2.0 is really where there is the rest of the 2/3 of India also catches on to this entire revolution very deeply. If I were to compare this globally, about 500 million Indians is what are the true internet users, which covers about 40% of the population, which has a smartphone penetration as well. And if we look at our device usage, 88% of India actually has a phone, 40% of which have smartphones. So that's the level, and that's also the opportunity as we look into the coming decade as well. The entire digital revolution is happening in the 300 million people who are the very active data users. And when we talk about any disruption that any of the, either the OTT players or telecom players or the content industry, all that is happening, it's targeting the same 300 million consumers. The remaining 1 billion of India, there is still a chasm which we've not been able to cross. And I think that's really the question for the consumer of tomorrow, that how do we get that consumer over to this side of the chasm, or how do we get all these companies over to that side of the chasm? I, for one, being a technologist, I can tell you, I honestly feel this is our decade. It's literally our decade to win, and if we don't invest enough in disruptive technologies, it'll be our decade to lose. But I think it's our decade to shine, and on that note, I'll take thank you from you, and thank you very much, Abraham, for having me here.
And we are going to become digital humans. I think what makes digital human happening? I think if you look at Chris Skinner talking about, it's not just people getting connected on number of devices. It actually can eradicate poverty of the entire world. A digital inclusion can actually eradicate poverty in the entire globe. It's such a powerful transformation. What makes it happen? What makes all of us to feel that we are digitally connected? It can actually bring a digital inclusion, which can actually improvise country economics. If you look at all this balanced approach, putting all this digital human at the core of country, and also looking at balancing this through all digital networks, through all the 4 pillars which are to be supported, and we believe, I think this impact will be transformational. I think a digital India, which is focusing on digital Indian, actually can bring a 20 to 30% GDP growth and create a $1 trillion opportunity, annualized opportunity for the country to take it forward. And all of this can happen because it's not just a telecom industry. It is basically a larger purpose to see how we can improve economy of the country to eradicate poverty in the country using digital inclusion. Thank you very much.
Before getting into the shared data environment, I would like to go into how the telco transformation or the network function evolution has happened over the period. Earlier, the networks were with monolithic functions. Like if you look the network, it was having a single device, single network, and the services were dependent upon the networks. Over a period, what happened, there was a full of proprietary solutions, 100% human operated, very slow in adapting change. It was very, very difficult to implement in new services. As we are talking about in 5G, we have to implement lot many services. The monolithic network was where each network function has to be changed to to adopt to a new service. It was very difficult to implement a new service without introducing an additional network entity. These monolithic functions got transitioned into the NFV, which is an ongoing transformation. In this, the telco networks, more devices, is still the single network, and the services were converged. There, the decoupling of the hardware and software has happened there, but the bad part is the VNS were still monolithic and stateful. So you have to still go with each of those network functions and work out separately. Over the years, if you look, the service providers wanted the ITification of the telco network, which seems like is going to be possible by adopting the service-based architecture as well as the shared data environment. Let's look a little bit more deeper into the network function evolution. Earlier, the network functions were provided on the bare metals and deployed as a bundled solution. Hardware and software is coming together and deployed it. Each of those network functions has their own lifecycle management, own databases, own monitoring agents or common services. Now, if you have to implement a service which comprises of multiple network functions, yeah, you can think of managing each and every network functions database separately. So these were the problems which were there in the bare metal. Now that moved to the virtualized environment. What has changed from the bare metal to the virtualized environment is the infrastructure is now shared among multiple network functions. But the database and the common services still remain same with each of those network functions. Thank you.
4G customers, the base grew from 60 million to 410 million. So that's almost 7 times growth of the number of customers that came onto the network. And I'm talking pan-India numbers. What happened to the consumption as far as per customer per month is concerned? You know there is a 1 GB per day kind of a data plan which almost every operator is running in the country. The total consumption per customer per month has grown to the extent of 7 GBs. What has happened to the voice minutes? You know there are unlimited voice plans which are prevalent in India. Earlier, people used to talk about 400 minutes on an average in a month. This number has become double. Distributed architecture that needs to be adopted as far as the core technology is concerned. And this distributed architecture has to be based on control plane, user plane separation, CUPS architecture, that's what it is called. It is going to be critical in order to be taking it to the level where it makes sense for us in order to grow in a manner which will be flexible, which will be robust, and which will be good enough for us to extract as much intelligent information that we can from all the network resources that we are deploying and then use it for monetization. Because connectivity in itself is not going to help in generating revenue. But the intelligence based out of the connectivity is what would be needed in order to generate the revenue that is needed to sustain this kind of growth demand that's likely to happen. Thank you.
See, we have seen a dramatic change in telco industry. One, that this 2019 is going to be a more dramatic in terms of developments which are happening across the telcos. One of the development that may further lead to certain business opportunities for the people, for the business managers who are operating in this sector, like 5G. I think 5G is going to be one of the most talked about development which is happening in telco industry. The second is coming up with the various challenges like the cyber attacks. Those are going to be much more targeted, and there would be much more attacks which we will see by virtue of these IoT devices are getting into place. And then we are seeing many applications which are quite vulnerable to these kind of attacks. What we are seeing, this on the 5G, there is an estimate that we are going to see almost 1.5 billion people are going to utilize 5G services by 2024. By end of the next year, that is 2020, we'd be seeing cyber attacks on the telco infrastructure. Every 20 seconds, there would be a major cyber attack. When I talk about the data breach and the major cyber attacks, I'm not just talking about having certain smaller attacks. We are talking about the mega breaches which are going to happen. The last is put forth a cyber Incident response plan, that is very important. We do have all these SOPs in place if there is a fire or safety regulations. Similarly, I would urge each one of you to have an incident response plan for your organization. And fourth, and the last one, there's a very, very important, please report these breaches to the appropriate authorities. If you have a CISO in your organization, please report that. Please report it to the CERT. That is very important to get this reported so that these attacks do not occur, do not reoccur, because that's what is happening across the industry. We do not report these breaches, and then these breaches are unheard of, and those hackers come back to us again and again to utilize the same methodology, and then we compromise our infrastructure. Thank you, sir.
For 5G to happen in India, the main ingredient that needs to be put in place is deep fiberization, meaning every mobile tower has to be connected on fiber. And transitioning to network design, we have to look at software-defined networks coming online real quickly, and the user experience being enriched by using machine learning and intelligence along with this change in the network fundamentals.
There are massive transformation happening as far as the Indian telecom space is concerned. So typically when we are used to the network, we are talking about a PST network, or we're talking about a cellular network, So there is these kind of technologies are actually working on a protocol which is known as SS7. So these are all TDM based architecture where you will have an analog component of the wire coming, and and then you need to be connected with the traditional networks, and you're talking to each other.
The 18th Telecom Leadership Forum opened doors to discussion and deliberation on an array of topics pertinent to the sector. We bring you highlights from the session themed Future is Now.
2015, where RailTel tied up with Google to set up a free Wi-Fi network on the 400 stations of Indian Railways. And now recently, we have tied up with Tata's to provide Wi-Fi on all the 6,500 stations on the Indian Railways. The basic OFC architecture is where we have got STM1 equipments at all the stations, all the 7,000 stations, which are placed approximately 8 to 10 kilometers apart. Key services offered on the OFC network are the high-capacity lead lines, managed lead lines, MPLS IP VPNs, dark fibers also to MSOs, and we are providing internet leased lines, fixed broadband services. We have also set up our data center, in which we are offering co-location data center services also, and the application hosting on the RailTel IT private cloud. Thank you very much.
The event also had a very interesting Captain's Roundtable powered by Cisco, consisting of captains from the telecom industry who ideated on the challenges, opportunities, and the road ahead for Indian telecom.
We want our networks to give us a whole lot more data. There is no end to it, right? I mean, just 2015, we were saying we entered the zettabyte era, and now we saw charts from Cisco that in 24 or something, the number they are saying is 22 zettabytes, right? So yeah, I don't even know how to comprehend that. All I know is till you give me enough data equivalent to the data I'm getting from here, sounds, music, lights, everyone's faces in high definition, I'll still keep asking for more. We need all of it right now. So when I want something, I want it now. No milliseconds, probably nanoseconds is where we'll stop finally. For a variety of things, not just a simple phone call that we used to have, a whole bunch of things. With no disruption, we want it to be super reliable. If it breaks down, I'm going to kill you, right? And we want it very cheap. Actually, we want it free, right? Why should we pay for this? This is the telecom industry a few years ago, and this is what it has become. Not just voice, not just transmission, storage, processing, analytics, AI. This is $1 trillion opportunity. And what I wanted to say to you is the net worth giving network is this one. That gives you high scale, high agility, 100% uptime, low cost, that finally gives you this positive experience. I'm not going to spend, again, too much time on it. Only one that I want to spend time on is experience. So what is experience? Experience is when we give people extra, over and above what they want today, and we do it fast. Like, you know, when Federal Express came, their whole thing was, we get you to you the letter fast. And that fast is always relative. So till we are coming up with a network that is consistently better than what it is today, we will always find it difficult to make all those four things balance. We'll have more people coming in, but we'll have to make extra effort to make them pay the same money that they were paying in the past. So thank you so much, everyone.
I'm only going to talk about a few aspects which we see as what's going to happen in the next few years as 2.0. It's very difficult to define what is 1.0 and 2.0. But in simple terms, the innovation that this single product has created over the last few years is unimaginable. And as we take a stock of actually what we are, where we are today. The smartphone has become integral. What I'm going to say in this slide is something which you don't know. It's such an integral part of our life that there was one place where I read that every day you touch it for 150 times. I don't believe it's 150, actually it's more than that. It is almost an irreplaceable product from our life. Just to give a sense of what it stands today and how it looks today, there are three comparisons which I came across, and one was basically the smartphone of today is more powerful than a supercomputer of 1990. It's even more powerful than the spacecrafts NASA launched a few decades back. The way we create and consume content has changed, and that's very visible, because it's not too difficult to fathom that. We have seen that in Qualcomm, these bars of expectation from what that product delivers go up. And as we keep innovating and we keep making these innovations translate into these devices, there are two aspects which essentially will influence the next generation of the smartphones, and there's no single cutoff timeline for that. The first one, I would say, is AI. And this is something which probably we have talked a lot about. And every phone which you see gets launched today, you'll see an AI. Things like photography, what you have been seeing, the bokeh modes and all the complexities which you're seeing in the videography or the photography, these are all actually run on fairly complex algorithms on AI. Gaming, browsing, and even battery life. So sometimes you may wonder, how can battery life be something which AI can run? But there are algorithms built for better battery lives. A lot of these devices and billions of these devices collected, we'll have a lot of this data, which many people talk about. We need to analyze those data. And this we call it the data lakes. The massive data lakes are going to create, whether you take them to the cloud, you park them there, or you bring them back. A change which is being impacted is in the chip design. A good part of the silicon footprint is being consumed by AI. So the whole world is about miniaturizing and making the chip smaller and smaller so that the power consumption is better. Most of us probably are on Android, and what we see is that the Android OS will give, as this is a massive platform, we'll see a lot of applications help drive this ecosystem and we'll be able to experience earlier. As globally these are driven. Thank you.
Further during the evening, achievers from the telecom sector were recognized by the Telecom Leadership Forum in different categories, awarding exemplary work. In the category Enterprise Business Services, AT&T took home the honors. In the category Smart City, the winner was Starlight for empowering the citizens of Kakinada. In Network Infra Innovation, The winner was Starlight Technologies. In the category Corporate Social Responsibility, Indus Tower took the honours. In the category Cloud Services, the winner was Sifi Technologies. The Best Telecom Company of the Year award was conferred to Reliance Jio. The CTO of the Year award was won by Jagbir Singh, ex-CTO, Reliance Jio. In the category Lifetime Achievement Award, the winner was Akhil Gupta, Vice Chairman Bharti Enterprises. In the final category, Telecom Person of the Year, the winner was Aruna Sundararajan, Secretary Department of Telecom. The Telecom Leadership Forum is not only an annual meeting of the Indian telecom leaders and other industry stakeholders, but a platform to steer change with better and newer services to meet the growing demands of the consumer.
There clearly has been a shift in terms of how SPs have been implementing the changes in their networks and their data center architectures. So clearly, I think the industry is getting prepared to move truly into become what I call digital service provider industry. And I think that fundamentally three major shifts that are happening, and I must say they're executing pretty well.
Partnered by Times Influence.